Today we are going to go over one thing that may be preventing you from getting your first pull-up that nobody is really talking about.
I've been doing things that they told me I should never do. I've been doing things that they told me I could never do now. Never do, I could never do. I've been looking back and I'm the only one who ever knew. My dreams begin to turn out.
Now, before we do that, I do want to go over various progression models that you want to ensure that you are implementing into your program if you're serious about getting your first pull-up. So pull-ups are extremely challenging. They are a very humbling, a very empowering movement. So if you are struggling to get your first pull-up, don't let it discourage you. I promise you it is worth the battle. Let's quickly go over the different variations when it comes to doing your pull-ups. So these types of progression models you can implement for any of these variations. Play with all of them to see what works best for you. So the first one is going to be just a neutral grip pull-up. That is where your palms are facing one another. So as you can see here, my palms are facing each other, and that is going to be a neutral grip pull-up. You can also do a pronated grip. That is where your palms are facing forward. So as you can see with this grip right here, if you have access to different attachments, then by all means you can have your grip where your forearms are going to be more parallel to one another. Obviously, I'm limited with what I have available here, where my grip isn't as narrow as one may like, but that is going to be a pronated pull-up. And then we have the chin-up. So with the chin-up, that is where you have a supinated grip, and that is where your palms are facing towards you. Again, I would have a more narrow grip for this, where your forearms are much more parallel to one another. Obviously, I'm limited. I would not recommend having your grip this wide apart, but underhand, supinated grip, that is gonna be a chin-up. Play with all of them, see what works best for you. Typically, if you're first starting out, doing a chin-up is a little bit easier than doing pronated, but neutral is also a great starting point as well. We're gonna go over 3 progression models that I have found to be very helpful and effective with allowing me to get my first pull-up and allowing a lot of my athletes as well too to get their first pull-up. There are a bunch of other progression models out there in the world, so if there are other things that you have seen that you're not seeing in this video, feel free to implement other variations into your routine. But like I said, these are the 3 things that I have found to be pretty effective. So the first progression is going to be scapula pull-ups, and this is where we are focusing on just the initial portion of the movement. So that first portion of the movement where you're focusing on pulling yourself up, we're just focusing on that initiation of the movement where we aren't fully pulling ourselves up. So just a demonstration of what a scapula pull-up is. We are going to be focusing at the bottom range of the motion and focusing on just pulling ourselves up for that first initiation. We're not going to go all the way up, and this is because this is the most challenging part of the movement. If you can master scapula pull-ups, you're going to be able to eventually do a full pull-up. So we're going to dangle down, get yourself onto a bench, dangle down, and fully extend your arms and really just open up your back. And what we want to do is we want to retract our scapula and just depress our shoulder blades down and just kind of arch our back and start to pull ourselves up. So this is what it's going to look like. That is all we're going to do for scapula pull-ups. It may not seem like a lot, but this portion of the range of motion is what is going to allow you to be in an optimal position to fully pull yourself up. So if you can focus on just that initiation, oh my goodness, it's going to be a game changer to allowing you to have an effective pull-up. So with that progression, just focus on slightly pulling yourself up and focus on increasing your reps over time. So maybe do 3 sets of 10, and then see if you can start to do 3 sets of 12, 3 sets of 15. I think at that point in time, you're pretty good to go where you want to focus on increasing the range of motion. So as you start to feel much more comfortable and confident with that movement pattern, then you want to start to focus on pulling yourself up just a little bit higher each week. So how that would look is maybe week 1, you do 3 sets of 10, you pull yourself up just like that. You start to feel a lot stronger heading into week 2 and week 3, where you're able to start to pull yourself up, where it's a little bit higher, just like this. So still focusing on that scapula pull up and then pulling yourself up just a little bit higher. So really still prioritizing that first initiation of the movement and then pulling yourself up just a little bit higher, just like that. Week after week, you might start to notice that you can pull yourself up even higher, and you're so close to getting up to the top, but really still prioritizing that first portion of the movement, and then eventually you're going to get even higher and higher. So if you can get your shoulder blades into that proper position, that's where that power output is really going to come into play. So really strengthening your scapula is going to be your bread and butter to actually improving and getting that first pull up. We're moving on now to progression model number 2, and that is going to be negative pull-ups. So negative pull-ups is where we prioritize your progression, your strength and development on the second portion of the movement. So that's where we are coming back down. We are focusing on what is known as the eccentric portion of the movement. And this is just where we are lengthening our back muscles. We don't really care with this variation of the first portion of the movement. We're only fixating our efforts on that second portion of the movement. So we're going to get up onto our bench again, and we are going to get ourselves into the position where we are already at the top. So you might need to get a higher bench if you have one available. For me, based off of my limitations here, I'm just going to hop myself up and get myself into that starting position. So we're going to pull ourselves up to the top, and then we're going to focus on slowly lowering ourselves down to that starting position of what a true pull-up would look like. So I'll give you an example what it would look like. So make sure your hands are in the proper position before you jump up. But once I got a good grip on the bar, I'm going to hop up and pull myself into the starting position. Then we're going to slowly lower ourselves down and really focus on fully extending those arms, really opening up your lats, and that is going to be 1 rep of the negative pull-ups. So get yourself back up on to the bench and really focus on just fully lengthening your back when you're doing this variation. So same progression where maybe you do about 3 to 10. So we're going to hop ourselves back up. We're going to slowly lower ourselves back down, really fully extend those elbows, really open up your back. Don't stop right here and think you've done a full rep. Really just open everything up. And that way you can get your body used to being in a full range of motion. So with the length of time, I would prioritize progressing with that. So maybe you can only lower yourself by doing like a 1 to 2 second rep count. I would try to progress that where eventually you can start to lower yourself at about a 3 to 5 second rep count. And that's really going to help ensure that you are in full control of the eccentric portion of the pull-up. The last exercise before you are ready to get that perfect pull-up are going to be banded pull-ups. Now, a lot of people tend to start with banded pull-ups. I would recommend that you prioritize those 2 first exercises that we've already gone over, because it's really going to help ensure you're doing the movement pattern correctly. If your body isn't used to going through the correct movement patterns, even if we utilize a band, your body's not going to be put through the same movement patterns that are necessary to help increase your efficiency, which is going to help you increase your strength with the pull-up. So once you've mastered the scapula pull-ups and as well too the negative pull-ups, we're ready to move on to banded pull-ups. So we're just going to loop a band just like this around where you set yourself up to do pull-ups. So a lot of people will put either their foot or their knee into the band. I personally prefer to put my knee into the band just because the band doesn't come low enough. I find it's a little bit more comfortable for me. So I try to pull the band down, get my knee into position, just the one knee, And then I will go and grab onto the bars and pull myself down and initiate the full pull-up here. So we're gonna really ensure that we're still prioritizing our movement patterns that we learned during the scapula pull-ups and then the negative pull-ups. So we're gonna pull ourselves down into position, and the band's already wanting to pull me up. So I'm still trying to get a full extension at my elbows and really open up my back. So before we pull ourselves up, we're gonna focus on initiating through our scapula, then we're gonna pull ourselves all the way up, and then when we come down, we're gonna come down nice and slow. The band is really helping me out right now, so really prioritize a slow range of motion. A lot of people, when they get the band around them, that's where form starts to break down because they're trying to do all the reps. I don't care how many reps you can do. I care about you doing the pull-up correctly. So really just focus, instead of people like doing this and just trying to pull themselves up and their shoulder blades start to round forward and other areas of their body start to compensate, slow it down, drop the ego, really prioritize proper movement patterns so your body learns the proper movement patterns so that way eventually you don't need to use this band. That's the end goal here, right? So really take it nice and slow, open up your back, initiate through your scapula, pull yourself up, and then really slowly bring yourself back down to the starting position. Because if we don't prioritize that when we are utilizing the band, not that there's anything wrong with when people do these types of pull-ups, but you're not giving your body the appropriate amount of time to progress. If all you're doing when it comes to trying to get that first pull-up is bringing your knees forward and really just like scooching yourself up like this to try to get that first pull-up. Yes, you feel like you're doing it. It's not that you're not doing it, but you're not going to progress from there because all you are doing when we're doing those types of variations is teaching your body inefficient movement patterns, and those are going to be adaptations that your body's going to learn, and it's not going to know how to do a proper pull-up. If you are still struggling to get that first pull-up after implementing all of these different progressions, you've given it an honest effort and you're looking at me, you've watched this video and it's 2 months later, you're like, Kristen, I still can't get my first pull-up. Let's go over one tip, one thing that you may not have ever been told when it comes to actually mastering and accomplishing this goal that feels like Mount Everest. And the best thing that you can do is to actually ensure that you are eating an adequate amount of food. Our bodies rely on what is known as the glycolytic system when it comes to anaerobic exercise. So exercises that we are doing that doesn't involve oxygen, lifting weights and doing pull-ups being one of them. So in order to maximize this energy system, we need carbohydrates to fuel our workouts. If we don't have enough energy in the tank, how can we ensure that we have enough fuel to really push ourselves to get that first pull-up? A lot of people, especially women, are chronic dieters where they are constantly in a calorie deficit and therefore their body isn't getting enough nutrients to actually perform effectively. And I'm not saying that you need to stop dieting. If your goal right now is to focus on body composition, lose some weight, for whatever the reason may be, I'm not saying that you can't get your first pull-up if that is the phase that you are in right now. All I am saying is that it is going to be an uphill battle. It is going to be a challenge. It is going to be a struggle, and it might be worth prioritizing this at a later date when you aren't in a calorie deficit. Because at the end of the day, you can't suck and blow at the same time, right? So if your goal is to focus on dieting right now, then focus on dieting right now. I'm not knocking that. There is no shame in that whatsoever. But if your goal is to finally get that first pull-up, it may be worth reevaluating things right now, reevaluating some of your structures and processes that you have in place so you're actually setting yourself up for success. At the end of the day, the decision is yours. There's not a right or wrong answer here, but I do encourage you to just manage your expectations and understand that if you are dieting and you are trying to get your first pull-up, it's going to be a bit of a struggle, and you need to manage your expectations and understand that the journey may be a little bit longer. That's not a reason for you to quit the journey. Still focus on trying to get that first pull-up. Like I said, it is a battle worth winning, But if you are dieting right now, just know it is gonna be a little bit more of a challenge. Those are the tips that I have for you all. I really do hope that you found it to be helpful. I do have a lot of options for performance-based coaching, so if this is a serious goal for you and you need some just additional help, maybe some form critique, don't hesitate to reach out. Visit my website, THENATTYHOUR.com. You can go take a look at some of my services that I have available because I would love to help you get that first pull-up. Like I said, it's the best feeling in the world. No matter how much of a struggle that it may feel right now, it is worth getting there one day. If you found this video to be helpful, as a thank you to me, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It really helps the channel grow so we can reach and help more people get their first pull-up. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. I look forward to chatting with you all again in the next video.